Yo, what's up with all the quests? Most modern RPGs have quests. Quests are smaller and optional side stories used to give you a cheeky little break from the main story of the game. Go to an optional dungeon, fight a couple skelly boys, and get a magical +2 dagger. Cool, this will help our mage for a little while. Nice. Quests can be really beneficial, giving you experience, gold, and resources to help even out the playing field if the main storyline has left you a little weak. Not everyone likes grinding, so instead of just fighting the same goblins over and over again, maybe there's a quest to fight a wizard in a tower or something. You know, something that's a little bit more exciting. Sometimes quests will give you exciting insight into your party members. Maybe there's an additional side quest. Maybe there's additional side content that will flesh out your characters. Your thief has heard that there's a haunted mansion in the South Mountains where his arch-nemesis was spotted sacrificing cats to Abgul, the Necrolord of Peak's End. You'll find out your rogue is descended from zombie hunters. Cool. Quests are all over the place. I remember seeing them for the first time, at least in my own headcanon, in Phantasy Star 4 with the Hunters Guild. Sure, I played loads of games with optional content or subquests, but to have an actual in-game list of optional stuff to do was very cool. I still remember going to Valhalla Fort and getting crushed by life deleters. What a great time! Quests! I love them! But I fucking hate them. Quests can be used for nefarious purposes. Quests can be used to pad out a game's runtime. Quests can be pointless busy work. Quests can be work. And I'm here playing video games. I want to have fun, but sometimes games have bad quests, or too many quests, or too many bad quests. I remember playing WoW and eventually just getting so bored by the quests that I would just stop reading the details. Just skip that superfluous dialogue. I like Granblue Fantasy, the fantastic and beautiful gacha RPG for smartphones. Gorgeous artwork, thrilling music, and a fun, interesting world. I played loads of the original gacha in my browser and loved almost every minute of it. I've dabbled in a lot of gachas over the year, with only 2 keeping my attention for an extended time. Fire Emblem Heroes, which I put a lot of time into, and of course, Granblue Fantasy. I've even played a lot of the 2 fighting games, Versus and Versus Rising. I'm not good at fighting games, but these games are just so fucking gorgeous to look at, and I love the art so much that I had to play them. And I had a lot of fun. One of my rarest Steam achievements is from Granblue Versus. Those games are also very expensive. What's the deal with the DLC character prices? Anyway, let's talk about Granblue Fantasy Relink. Granblue Fantasy Relink was developed by Osaka Cygames and published by Cygames for the PS4, PS5, and Windows in February 2024. This game was announced way back in 2016 and was meant to be released in 2018. That's a pretty big delay in this day and age. Also, Platinum Games were meant to work on this game as well. Yeah, the Bayonetta people. Sounds like it could have been a pretty wild combination, but Platinum Games dropped out in 2019. Oops. Despite these setbacks, once the game was finally released, it sold over 1 million copies in its first 2 weeks. Fan and critical reception were also good. Most professional reviews seem to be around the 80% mark. Very nice. That's very good. This is a very good game. See, the numbers are there, and they spell disaster for you at sacrifice. The story is fine. It's not really that deep at all. Some bad guys show up and want to resurrect a demon. It's just that simple. There's nothing particularly deep or enthralling here. I even found a lot of the characters to be really annoying. The characters are very much in that the power of friendship sort of realm, with everyone constantly telling each other that they're doing great and that they can defeat the baddies if we all work together. It's all just a bit too saccharine for me. Also, the dragon mascot Vern has one of the most high-pitched and shrill voices I have heard in a long time. But the game also has Richard Epcar as the voice of Yugen, so I couldn't turn it off. Bato is one of my favorite characters ever, and hearing that voice constantly was a hell of a good time. I never had this issue with the original Granblue, as it's just a mobile game, so no one had voices. It was easy to skim through the dialogue and get back to leveling your dudes, or recruiting new units, or smacking goblins in the face. That's what I found fun about the original game, and the gameplay is what I found fun about Relink. While being an action RPG, Relink has all of the Granblue stuff you want. Colorful, vibrant characters, a gorgeous, breathtaking world, wonderful, beautiful music, and of course, lots of very attractive anime girls. While there's no gacha, you can collect crewmate cards and recruit characters at the knickknack shop. Yes, Sierra is here and is as bubbly as ever. The fun thing about the crewmate cards is that you get to choose which character you want. None of this gacha gambling nonsense. I get to immediately recruit best girl Narmaya. This game looks great. The graphics are truly fantastic and highlight those character and world designs. It did chug in towns on my 6-year-old PC, but for the most part played pretty good. The world is large with lots to explore. There are only 2 towns in the game, which I think is a pretty good idea in a game with so much to see and do. The music is fantastic and fits the world to a T. Loads of tracks bursting with joyous melodies, melodic passages, and whimsical harmonies. A lot of the songs aren't going to get stuck in your head. This is mostly mood music, which I guess could be kind of a complaint. While no one is loading up Fury Cane, Vitality Primal Part 1 and humming along to it, you can easily appreciate the composition and where it is placed in the narrative. The gameplay of Granblue Fantasy Relink has a lot to see and a lot to do. The combat, character building, and collecting aspects of this game are all on point. Combat is fast and addictive, character building is dense and rife with choice, and there is so much to collect that you'll be constantly trying to decide if it's time to whip out an Excel spreadsheet. Combat, you've got a team of 4 but have access to like 20 units, 3 more if you get the DLC. These are some of the most popular Granblue characters: Narmaya, Zeta, Charlotta, Cagliostro, and some male characters. As mentioned, you need crewmate cards to recruit additional units. At first, you're just going to be using the default units like EO and Rackham and that lot, but once you get enough crewmate cards, things really open up. These characters are very diverse and have their own library of skills. Whatever combination of characters you put together, you are going to have a good team. I ended up using Gita, Narmaya, Zeta, and Cagliostro for just about all of the game. But I did play with Fairy and some male characters for a while, and they're all pretty good too. As your characters level up, you'll learn new attacks, and you can map 4 of those to your dudes at a time. You'll also get skybound arts, which are your big attacks that you can use during battle after your meter maxes out. You can also chain these skybound arts together with your other characters for additional damage. Your party members that you don't control are run by AI, but you can tell them to use their skybound arts whenever they want, or to save them and use them when you do. This way you don't lose your meter. It's a pretty smart system. Speaking of spreadsheets, the weapon system sure is complex. You can forge new weapons at the blacksmith. To these weapons, you can attach sigils, which will give you stat ups and passive skills. You can level them up with materials you get off monsters and from quests. You can uncap weapons with more materials so you can level them up higher. You will get munitions that you can attach to weapons to increase their strength. You can also awaken weapons. Just holy shit. I had intense choice paralysis while playing this game because of all of this. I just felt that putting anything into a weapon would take away from a later weapon. Why put a bunch of time into this one sword that's not going to last me into the endgame? I ended up putting a lot of time and effort into the mid-game weapons because that's when things started to get difficult. I didn't even end up looking at the endgame options due to this. It was just ever escalating, and I was feeling that sunk cost fallacy. Well, I put 1,000,000 shards and 1,000,000 mats into making this one sword good, so I might as well stick with it for the rest of the game. It is a lot, and I found myself somewhere between bored and annoyed with a lot of the options. It was just too many toppings on the pizza. Give me 3 or 4 toppings. That sounds like a nice pizza, but when you offer me a pizza with 12 different toppings, while still a tasty pie, it becomes too much to handle. There are just too many toppings. Okay, let's get back to quests. There are basically 2 kinds in this game. The ones you get from NPCs in town, and the ones that you get from the quest counter. The ones you get from people in town are things like, bring me 5 fire orbs, or bring me 10 pieces of ore. The quests you get from the quest counter are things like, here's a mission where you need to kill 50 goblins, or defeat the water dragon. The quest counter quests will warp you to arenas to do these quests, and during these times you can also earn and find the items needed for the NPC quests. This leads to replaying a lot of areas a lot. I fought some of these bosses upwards of 20 times. I entered some of these areas more than that. And all of these little arenas are all snippets of spots that you find during the main quest. So when I say you're gonna visit some of the places dozens of times, I truly mean it. And when you get to the end game, something truly mind-boggling occurs. When you get to the last chapter, you have to do a number of these quest counter quests to unlock documents, and you need 10 of these documents to progress. But this is when the quest counter quests level up. You start getting hard quests. These are significantly harder than the normal quests, but you push on. Then you have to start doing very hard quests, and these, as the name implies, are very hard. This is when I started hitting the ceiling with my weapons and sigils and skills that I had. But in order to get these documents to actually finish the game, I had to beat a bunch of very hard side quests. So I pushed and pushed, earning nominal increases in stats, or levels, or weapon power, until I unlocked extreme quests. And I needed to do a load of those to get maniac quests. I was playing the same quests over and over and over again, on harder difficulties, just to progress the story. So yeah, this wasn't post-game leveling for sickos, this was just doing the main quest line. After a lot of questing, I managed to get strong enough to get the last documents and get to the final boss, which involves controlling a massive dragon to fight another massive dragon, which is basically just a Street Fighter match. All of those character levels, weapon levels, munitions, uncapping quests, replayed areas, only to get into a fight where you have to spam X to win. What an absolute letdown. But hey, I finally got to the post-game where I could do loads of silly post-game stuff like replay all the quests that I had just done for 50 plus hours. Now, yes, there are quote-unquote new quests that you can unlock in the post-game, but it's just fighting all of the same dudes in all of the same areas. If I didn't just spend 50 plus hours leveling up and doing loads of quests, sure, that would be fine. That's what a post-game is all about. But I spent so much time doing all of this during the actual game that I just didn't want to do it anymore. You can do the first part of this game in like 20 hours. This will get you to Chapter 0. Up until this point, you are playing the main story. Chapter 0 is essentially the epilogue. This is where I spent 50 to 60 hours replaying quests over and over again to get strong enough to finish Chapter 0 to get the real post-game. Granblue Fantasy Relink would make a great 40 to 50 action RPG if the story was expanded and quote-unquote optional grinding was rolled into the actual story. It feels like there's this diamond beautiful wonder of a game that is stuck inside a never-ending conveyor belt of monotony. This Ouroboros of quests, a quagmire of playing the same areas over and over again, so you can get materials to level yourself up so you can just barely eke out a win, where the prize is unlocking harder versions of the same quests in the same areas you just conquered. I feel like tearing my hair out of my head after playing this game. This game sold loads of copies, most outlets have given it 8s or 9s, but here I am, throwing my toys out of the pram and declaring that this game is a hard 6 at best. And I am usually pretty okay with finding the silver lining of a shitty game's dark cloud, but I just don't have it in me for Granblue Relink. I just feel like I was fighting against the game almost the entire time I played it. I feel like the guy who stands in front of the Mona Lisa and says, "Okay, and?" when everyone else is proclaiming how beautiful the art is. And I hope it comes across that I found part of this game absolutely amazing. Character design, combat, music, the world, the graphics, it's all incredible. This game is gorgeous to look at, enchanting to experience, and an absolute blast to play. But the parts of the game that don't mesh with me really don't mesh with me. But I'm also the guy who wants 8 really good quests instead of 100 generic ones. I want to go to Valhalla Fort and get plastered by life deleters. I want to say, God damn, this is like its own little game inside of a larger one. But Granblue Relink asked me to fight a dragon 12 times so I could gather enough bloodstones to level up my sword so I could uncap it and put more bloodstones in it so I could finish the main quest and do it all again in the post-game. I'm Richard for RPG Fortress, and if you play Granblue Relink, I really hope you have a better time with it than I did.